can't believe so many of you are here at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. I can't believe I'm here at 9 o'clock on a Saturday. You'll notice that the logo is up behind me because that photo makes me look like a child. All of you guys have got very professional headshots, and I'm looking like a kid. But you'll also notice I don't have slides, much like most of the speaker team. Sorry to single you out, Sam. And that's because I've banned them at work, and that's a little bit unconventional. I'm not copying Jeff Bezos. Nobody likes him. But, well, we don't right now anyway. But at the end of the day, I've never found them particularly useful. But it's a way of doing something different, and that is how I view life, and that's how I want to do life. So I was completing a degree in biochem in 2012, and it was really becoming apparent to me what we were doing to our environment. And what was becoming more apparent was that people like Jeff Bezos were doing it. Honestly, his name is not even in my presentation. I don't even mean to be saying it, but I'm probably going to be shot. But business seemed to be the biggest culprit for all of this destruction, right? Everything comes back to trade and how we do it. So I wanted to create a company that did good, that actually cared about the people it was working with, from supply chain to the very end consumer, because really businesses tend to care a little bit more about the consumer than anyone else, but also that produced a product that displaced a more wasteful one. So I started in the beauty industry, and everyone thinks, it's really frivolous, who cares about that? But 2.8 billion people in the world use some kind of beauty product every single day, and an average female in those countries uses 14 plastic bottles, containers, jars every single morning. So that is a lot of stuff. And I wanted to do something about it. The beauty industry, frankly, is really anything but beautiful. And frankly, I think it's time we sorted that out. So did I have any idea what I was doing? Absolutely not. It's fairly typical. I'm pretty sure I don't feel any different now. You talked about imposter syndrome. Here. So I bought some ingredients, I started mixing some stuff in my kitchen, I started annoying my poor boyfriend, and Ethique was born. At that time, I had already founded and sold 2 other businesses, but they were micro businesses that no one cared about, and they had taught me a lot, mainly what not to do. Pro tip, don't ignore the IRD. Very bad idea. But also the main thing I got out of them was that normal business bored me. I am so not interested in making money for money's sake. I wanted to do something that mattered. And throughout my entire life, I have always come back to why I exist is to try and protect our environment and the people within it. And if my career doesn't reflect that, then I get bored. I have always been very passionate about science. So obviously my career had to have something to do with science. So I cycled through things like oceanography, vet, doctor, everything you can imagine, but nothing to me would have the kind of scale I really wanted, the real impact. So I went back to business. And I believe business is the key to having the most impact. So business reimagined, what does that look like? I kind of classify it in 2 different ways, product and business operations. So product is what you make. It is the disposal of the packaging after the fact. So Ethique, of course, everything is compostable, so it's a completely waste-free product. But it's also the ingredients that go into the product, whether it's sugar for, say, a bottle of Coke, where does that sugar come from, where is it grown, and how are the growers treated? And other, avoiding ingredients like palm oil, for example, which is massively linked to deforestation, monocultures, and human rights abuses, which people are becoming more aware of. So for me, the product we made had to be as good as it gets. So Ethique bars, I think I can say now, hand on heart, are as good as they can get. But I have no doubt, as we learn more, we can make them better. The other side is often the one that businesses overlook because it's not sexy, it's not marketable, it's not exciting, and that's the business operations ethics. It's the idea of living wage certification. I think there's only 400 businesses certified for living wage in New Zealand. 400 in a country made up of small businesses. And I appreciate that people might view that as a little bit elitist, but you need to value your team and pay your team accordingly if we're going to make any difference at all. We are also climate positive, and again, this is another thing that's another cost to potentially lump on small businesses. But it's something we need to do. It's something we need to think about how we're going to achieve. So carbon offset is far from a silver bullet. It's not going to solve the climate crisis, but it is going to extend our time. It is going to help as we work out how to solve it. So we're climate positive or carbon negative, which just means we offset more carbon than we emit. We're a B Corp. Does anybody have any idea what a B Corp is? I would have thought that from this kind of room. Normally, crickets, which is a shame. So we are no longer the top scoring B Corp, and I'm not sour about that at all. Chia Sisters knocked us off by like a point. We've been the highest scoring B Corp for the entire time, but it's okay because we're about to recertify, and I'm sorry, we are going to win again. Not that it's a competition, and I'm not at all competitive. We also have a charitable donation scheme, so we've donated over $3 million in value to organisations in the 8 years we've been alive, and that will pale in comparison to what you do, Sam. You probably do that a day. But I am stoked with that result because we actually only worked it out the other day. But all of that really pales in comparison to the number one thing businesses can do to change the world, which is fair trade. Think about how rare fair trade products are in your supermarket. So does that mean, therefore, that everything else is unfairly traded? And the answer is probably yes. So almost everything you buy, someone, somewhere suffers for it in some way, and probably the environment too. I mean, it's a simple idea. If you pay people fairly for a product they produce, they are more likely to be able to look after their families, their communities, their environment, rather than exploiting them and trapping them through labour practices. Wouldn't we just live in a far better world? Why aren't we demanding more fairly traded products? Not necessarily certified fair trade, because that's got some barriers for some suppliers, but why aren't we looking to source fairly traded products more? And I'm aiming this at businesses, not at consumers, because this is not consumers' fault. We have lots of direct trading or fair trading relationships with suppliers around the world, and it is something we will always do and continue to grow because it's incredibly rewarding. So an example most of you will probably relate to and hate is chocolate. Every single bite of chocolate you have ever eaten has probably got child trafficking or child labour involved. And that is a pretty horrifying statistic. But if you look into the background of cocoa and the cocoa industry, it's hideous. It really is horrific. Not to mention rainforest deforestation, monocropping. It's devastating for people and planet. So of course, cocoa butter was one of the first things we ever sourced fair trade. And every company should do the same. Starting a business from day one with sustainability at its core is one thing. It's easier. Turning a ship that is headed in this direction, profit at all costs, is a very different thing. And that is something to be applauded. People and companies who are doing that, and there are a few examples. Unilever, for example, are doing more good than many of you might know. They should be applauded for what they're trying to do, and they will have the most impact. For us, it's a lot easier. From day one, these principles were embedded in there. We've saved 12 million plastic bottles. The next goal is 500 million by 2030, which I'm coming to terms with that as a number because it's a bit scary. But we are on track to do it. And if there are 80 billion plastic shampoo bars, plastic shampoo bottles thrown away every single year globally, we definitely cannot do that alone. So we need help. So how do we transform business to be regenerative on a larger scale? We understand the power of individual decisions and how much our consumer choices, how much power they actually have. As consumers are becoming more educated about the damage we're doing to people and planet, they are demanding better of their brands. And even better yet, loads of people are starting their own impact-led brands, and that is even more impactful. So this forces big brands to make decisions, and yes, a lot of these are becoming greenwashy and misleading and all sorts of things like the word natural or whatever bandied around on labels, and we need to learn to look through that and see past it, and many of us are doing so. But the businesses that make genuinely good decisions, they are changing the world. So if I leave you with anything, it's the idea that business done right will change the world to the one we want to see. But what changes businesses is consumers. So use your voice and demand better. Thank you.